Verse 11 up here again. Here he says that that thanks may be given by many persons on our behalf. That word persons there, I looked that up, and that literally means faces. That there will be many faces that are praying for us. You know, I don't remember people's names. And the older I get, the more I don't remember people's. I remember their face most of the time. I remember their face, and I see the faces, and I get a lot of prayer requests. They come in my emails, and people announce here, and if I hear a name, and I don't know these people, and I don't have a face to put with it, and they're somebody's cousin, I have a hard time praying for them, because I don't know who these people are. But if I've seen them, and I know their face, then I can bring that face before God. I can pray when I know somebody's face. And you know, we're not seeing too many faces right now. We show up for church, we have masks on. Everywhere we go, we have masks on. We have people who are watching online. We haven't seen their face in months. We haven't seen the faces. And this is a hardship and a danger on the church when we don't see one another's faces. I'll tell you a little story. I had to go to the drugstore and pick some medication up for Phyllis. And I've got a mask on, she's got a mask on, and there's plexiglass, bulletproof glass between us. And you have to give them their name, and then you have to stand back 6 feet in this line, and then you have to give them the birthday. So I went up and I said, I have some pick up medicine for Phyllis July. And she said, what's her birthday? And I thought she said, what's her last name? So I said, July. And she said, July what? And I said, July Phyllis. And then there was a long pause there in between that neither of us had any idea what the other one was talking about. And there's no way to explain it now because somebody's going to have to pull their mask down. So she asked me again, what was her birthday? And I went, we're going right back to the prehistory here. We're not seeing the faces. And we've got people that are divided into what I think are like 4 classifications going on right now. We've got people that think we should have a mask on all the time, that there's all kinds of diseases going on. And then we've got people think that this is nothing but tyranny and the government's taken over and they're going to kill us everyone because of the mask. And then we've got people that believe both of those. And then we've got a 4th group of people that have no idea we're under a pandemic. So we've got all these different things going on, and they cause strife. And we can be very vocal about our beliefs and what we should do and start attacking one another. So I think I'd like to caution us, never let this interfere with our fellowship. We've already got a big interference with our fellowship right now because we can't see the faces. We've got people here that we haven't seen their faces. We forgot what they look like. And someday this is all going to come back together. And as virus season gets underway here through the winter, it may be a long time before we see these faces once again. It's easy when worship is online to say, I'll watch it tomorrow. I can watch it at another time, it's online. And this fellowship of all of our voices praising God together and doing God's word together, it gets lost. And church becomes like a TV show. And church in a lot of places is like a TV show. It's not word-centered, it's entertainment-centered. There's a band on the stage, there's a praise team on the stage, and there's more singing than there is the actual Word of God. So this is nothing new. I looked up what happened in the last one, and if you notice here it says, this is a newspaper from 1918, schools are closed, no services in churches on Sunday. This same thing happened before. They had this deadly pandemic go through. They didn't know what to do. They canceled church. In fact, the churches were really quite cooperative back then, and they became hospitals. And they just laid people out inside the church buildings, and sometimes the preachers would stand out in the cold and people would show up. But one thing they did is the newspapers that time allowed the preachers to print their sermons in the newspaper so people could read them. And you can go back to today and you can read these sermons. They still have them. The newspapers allowed them to try to keep the Christians together as best they could through this. And you can see here that the influenza epidemic closes schools and churches and theaters, and the drugstores are swamped with flu. Every time a guy got a cough, man, he headed to the drugstore, and they didn't have the medicines that we had there. If you went to the barber shop and they shaved you, you got to take your mask off, but the barber had to keep his mask on. I just want to show you that there's nothing new. This is a baseball game. In the stands, they had the masks on. The players wore the mask. The football players wore the mask. What's happening to us right now is not something that's brand new. And it affected the churches back at that time. And also, especially out in San Francisco area, there was an anti-mask league, and they had these mass meetings. So there were people that rebelled against it. And one of the meetings there, it broke into a royal battle. They all started fighting with each other, and shots were fired. There was 3 guys got shot by the police for not putting their mask on and resisting the police. So the idea of the churches being separated, the idea of people voluntarily wearing masks or having to wear masks, people arguing against wearing masks, saying it was tyranny, none of this stuff is new. It all happened the last time we had that. But then eventually, if you notice up there, it says the mask will be put in disregard at noon today. The pandemic was over. Sirens were going to sound. Everybody's going to make noise. The pandemic is over. The problem with this is November. The pandemic got worse. It started up all over again. It wasn't over. And everything got worse. And different things took place that are taking place here right now. Churches had started to use individual communion cups. Before, they passed a big cup around, everybody drank out of it, and that's when people used to come in early and try to get in the front row. And I read some of the writings that people had at that time, and they're too disgusting to even bring up here of what happened to that cup when it finally got to the back. But even during the Reformation, 500 years ago, they were discussing using individual cups, and some churches were using individual cups because of the remnants of the bubonic plague, because they knew that. But churches were already starting, because they had a bad case of tuberculosis and typhoid that had gone through. They said, look, we got to start doing this. And they were already starting to do it. But when this came along, they started having the individual cups. And I put these up here. You notice, I don't know if you can see this very well, but you notice how that slanted away? One of the denominations, they were having a lot of trouble with their people drinking whiskey. So when they came with these little shot glasses, they cut that thing away so that they wouldn't jerk their head back and everybody looked like they're taking a shot of whiskey. That's why they had those cups made in that way in 1918. Say, let's cut them back here so at least it looks like they're just taking a sip rather than they're taking a shot. So here we are now. We've come through that. Most churches use individual cups. Then eventually most churches during the swine flu went to plastic throwaway cups or paper cups, and now we're bringing our own cups. So things are changing because of the same thing that took place at that time. Well, I just wanted to kind of bring that out. Paul said, I want many faces. I want to see many faces before me. And his ultimate concern then is not to rescue us from danger. And we're going to go through a bad time here where we're not going to see each other's faces. And we cannot take our opinions and cause them to bring division. Most of us here have some strong opinion one way or the other, or maybe two at once. And that's okay. But I have one half of my close family are medical people. And most of the other half of my close family think they are. So I've heard it all. I've heard every bit of it. The horror stories and the tyranny stories. But we can't let that divide the church. And you can hold those beliefs, but not to the irritation and the division of the other Christians. And I think we need to be very careful here as we try to work our way through that. Eventually this is going to end. Some have social concerns, health concerns, and things that you may not know about that's causing them to stay away or to keep the mask on or to not talk to you or shake your hand. And they may have these health concerns and they don't want you to know about them. So let it drop at that. Don't pester these people. Don't go after them. Our goal must be to help each other get through this so that the church one day will see each other's faces again. Let's not let this bother us. Paul's ultimate concern here is not the rescue from danger, but that God will be honored more and more, and that we will all be united in the resurrection.